Born November 6, 1973. Terrell Million, born and raised in Seattle Central District. Terrell Million, also known as BiG-TKidd, was from Seattle Central District. Duce8, South Jackson, first generation. BiG-TKidd grew up during the roughest times of the Seattle Central District during the 80s and the 90s at the height of the gangbanging era in Seattle. BiG-TKidd was part of the movement of the local kids from the central area who kicked out the California Compton Crips, who set up shop in different sets throughout Washington, from Tacoma, Washington, all the way through into the south end of Seattle, but was met with force when the California Crips tried to continue their takeover in the Seattle Central District area. BiG-TKidd and other individuals in his generation from the central area set the bar during those times for how the community should react to outsiders whose ill intentions were to take over the neighborhood with demand. BiG-TKidd's rough upbringing during the height of the crack and gang era taught him how to fight and soon be known as a knockout artist amongst his peers and throughout the city. Duce8 was formed by the neighborhood kids in the Central District in the late 80s, during a time of when the California Crips would try to continue recruiting Seattle kids and in becoming Crips themselves. Duce8, alongside other Central District allies such as East Union, Duce8 East Yesler, Seattle's Elm Street, Valley Hood Pyru, and Seattle Mafia Pyru, were successful at kicking out the California Crips, who became overpowered and outnumbered by the local native Central District sets. Over time, the Central District sets, who were once friends with the kids of the south end of Seattle, soon became enemies from the California Crips' presence remaining in the south end of Seattle.
Has led two LA gangs, the Crips and the Bloods, to expand to the northwest, battling for turf in Seattle and Portland. While LA police were arresting several people over this last weekend, their number in the hundreds, Seattle police were dealing with other members of those same gangs. Some 80% of Seattle's crack is said to come from LA.
We have documented instances of California gang members being here in Seattle.
I think it's important to emphasize that the biggest victims in this whole scenario are actually the people that live in the areas where drugs are being dealt.
Seattle police say that 7 people have been killed there this year in drug gang-related shootings. 387 were killed in such crimes in LA last year.
BiG-TKidd became feared throughout the city. Once a good, innocent kid, he became tainted by the drugs and violence that corrupted his once peaceful environment, and soon his ruthless tactics with his hands and pistols pumped fear in the heart of those who were his enemy or opposition of the Central District. BiG-TKidd also once had an altercation with legendary West Coast rapper Sebo, who would frequent Seattle often throughout the 90s. Even though Sebo was much liked throughout Seattle through his music, Sebo had many situations involving beef with Seattle locals.
Me Spice One? Who was on there?
Is that the, not Spice One, is the Boy You Can't Fuck With Dead?
Oh, Boy You Can't Fuck With Dead.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. What about that?
What's the story behind that?
So that song was written in Seattle.
About the Seattle.
I had bought a car from a lawyer. Some nigga went to jail and lost.
Was it
Regal. So some nigga went to jail, I guess, and I don't know if he was a stand-up nigga, he ratted on a nigga, or whatever the fuck. But I wound up getting his car from the lawyer. So when I had the car, I guess these niggas probably thought that was him. You know what I'm saying? So they got on me. Feel me? And was chasing us around and shit, you know what I'm saying? And, was shooting, trying to, because it was a couple cars, but there was a car behind me they were shooting at too. But they wind up chasing me and I wind up jumping out on them with my shit. And then that's all that shit.
Seattle is dangerous, but I knew that song, just from the streets, that was a real.
Oh, yeah.
On one occasion in the 90s, when T-Kidd was driving through the Central District and the Junkins Park area, when he spotted Sebo chilling in the park with a couple other individuals. BiG-TKidd, alongside a fellow friend who was driving, asked his friend to pull over in order for him to approach the California Crip rapper to speak with him. What started off as a somewhat friendly conversation between T-Kidd and Sibo soon turned into a confrontation where gang affiliation was brought up, and with T-Kidd having a past of not taking liking to Crips, there was no exception for Sibo, who was soon struck by BiG-TKidd and laid out in the Central District Park. As time went on, BiG-TKidd became fearless, and even though BiG-TKidd loved his community and his people, soon even some of his young homies in the neighborhood would fear him from the stories they would hear about him. Over time, T-Kidd would frequent King County Jail in a state penitentiary, and every time dude would get out, he got physically bigger and bigger, knocking dudes out from Seattle all the way to Eastern Washington. But soon, BiG-TKidd's past would catch up to him. In 1992, he was arrested when he and another man stole a couple's car at gunpoint. Police found Million with a stolen Ford Mustang. He told them he paid $20 to use it, but prosecutors dismissed the case because the victims wouldn't cooperate. Court documents describe Million, aka BiG-TKidd, as a well-known Central District Duce8 gang member. His biggest offense, manslaughter, came in 1994 when he was watching a friend play a game of dice with a rival Crips gang member. His friend, Carl and Quincy Davison, were arguing over the jackpot when Million's friend slugged Davison. Witnesses at the time told police Million pointed a .38 caliber handgun at Davison's head and ordered him to empty his pockets. Davison complied, but Million shot him in the chin. Witnesses said Davison fell to the ground and apparently tried to cover his head with his arm as Million stood over him and plugged him 4 more times. Records show Million was sentenced to 4 years in prison for first-degree manslaughter. T-Kidd also had an assault conviction in Yakima, which was also a shooting according to court documents. Over time, Terrell Million, aka BiG-TKidd, would spend many of his youthful years in the state penitentiary throughout the rest of the 90s. Time passed, and when BiG-TKidd was released from the penitentiary in 2004 after serving time for pleading guilty to a felon in possession of body armor in which he took to wearing out of fear of being shot. He served part of the 18-month prison sentence and was placed on federal probation as well as remaining under state supervision for his other crimes. Enjoying life as a free man, despite still living in the federal halfway house, BiG-TKidd was reunited with his old community and friends. When T-Kidd would hit the blade, you would know from the locals who would spread word that the original member was back in his old stomping grounds. But soon, that would come to a tragic end on the night of October 17, 2005. October 16, 2005, the energy was high in Seattle as the Seattle Seahawks beat the Houston Texans 42-10 at Quest Field. Player safety Ken Hamlin for the Seahawks had 5 tackles. After the game, with everyone being in good spirits, player Ken Hamlin, his girlfriend, his brother, and a couple other fellow teammates decided to celebrate their victory by going out for a night out in Seattle's Pioneer Square to Club Larry's. Club Larry's was very well known in Seattle in 2005, and the club to go to for a good time and a night out in the city. This would often lead to many different neighborhoods and different gangs throughout the city crossing paths and frequently getting into confrontations, with sometimes fights and even shootouts in the parking lot and around the club in downtown's Pioneer Square. On this night, October 16, 2005, it was no different. Come nighttime, Ken Hamlin and his entourage arrived at Club Larry's. After entering, Hamlin said later to his coach, Mike Holmgren, that him and his friends were just having a good time, celebrating their victory over the Houston Texans and enjoying themselves. Throughout the night, little did Ken Hamlin know that he would almost lose his life trying to leave the club come the end of the night when it let out at 2 a.m. October 17, 2005, around 1:40 a.m., an individual by the name of Terrell Million, also known in the city by BiG-TKidd from Duce8, South Jackson, arrived at Club Larry's with his little brother, who pulled up with his older brother in the passenger seat to drop him off. BiG-TKidd shook his little brother's hand and got out the car to greet his couple homies who were already down at the club waiting for the two brothers to pull up. BiG-TKidd's little brother hollered to his older brother, "I love you and call me later," as he pulled off into the night. Little did he know it would be the last time ever seeing his brother alive. Only moments after being dropped off, BiG-TKidd and his few friends he was now with made their way to the front of Club Larry's, where the let-out within minutes was soon to take place, which would lead to pure chaos and violence as it did. Ken Hamlin and the few friends he was with, after celebrating their win, were calling it a night, as Club Larry's was letting out and closing at 2 a.m., which was now after midnight, October 17th, Monday. It was now just a few minutes before 2 a.m., and Ken Hamlin's girlfriend later stated to the Seattle police that as they were walking out the club, they brushed up against an individual when Ken Hamlin put his hand on the individual's shoulder, saying, "Excuse me." That's when the individual, known as BiG-TKidd, exchanged words with Hamlin, which then led to a shoving match, which led to Hamlin throwing a punch at BiG-TKidd, striking him in the face. Hamlin's girlfriend was immediately separated from him as a brawl ensued. BiG-TKidd's friend, who was standing next to Ken Hamlin, immediately struck Hamlin with a blow from his forearm, knocking Hamlin to the ground. That's when witnesses say BiG-TKidd grabbed a street sign that was already broke off on the ground and struck Hamlin in his head while still on the ground, knocking the Seattle Seahawks player unconscious. BiG-TKidd and his friends took off into the night, and a crowd soon surrounded the unconscious Seattle Seahawks player, trying to provide aid to Hamlin while calling the police. Individuals in the crowd then grabbed Hamlin's motionless body from the ground, pulling him out the street to a safer spot on the sidewalk, waiting by him until police arrived. When the ambulance arrived, Hamlin was rushed to Harborview Medical Center in Seattle, where doctors soon discovered he suffered from a fractured skull, a blood clot in his brain, and a broken wrist. Larry Colt, owner of Larry's nightclub, told the police that Ken Hamlin was the aggressor, as the police stated to the Seattle News that they spent some time looking for the individuals responsible for Ken Hamlin's attack, but had no luck in finding the individuals responsible for the situation. October 17, 2005, a little after 5 a.m., and a few hours after what seemed to be a self-defense attack on Seattle Seahawks player Ken Hamlin, a morning jogger, was doing her 5 a.m. morning jogging routine around Seattle's Lake Washington when she came across a lifeless body laying on the morning dew wet ground, riddled with bullets. The morning jogger immediately called the police, and when the Seattle police arrived to the scene, they soon after identified the 32-year-old victim as Terrell Million, also known as BiG-TKidd. The morning jogger immediately called the police. Although authorities discovered it was BiG-TKidd who was found dead and identified as the suspect in the Ken Hamlin brawl hours prior, they were confused in how this all happened to BiG-TKidd, since he had a 9 p.m. curfew at the Federal Halfway House where he was living since his release from prison from serving an 18-month prison sentence for his 2004 felon in possession of body armor charge. Not too long after the police identified the victim, who was found shot numerous times and left for dead in Seattle's Lake Washington area, police soon realized that the victim they found shot dead was the same individual who was involved in the brawl with the Seattle Seahawks player Ken Hamlin hours prior in downtown Seattle from videotape evidence that the police reviewed at Larry's nightclub at the scene of the Ken Hamlin brawl. After doing some investigating, police discovered that Terrell Million, aka BiG-TKidd, the night prior left a dummy in his halfway house bed that resembled a human sleep. So when the halfway house social workers did their nightly checks on the residents' rooms, they thought BiG-TKidd was sleeping when they checked on his room. Now that authorities found out why BiG-TKidd was not in his halfway house, they still were confused on why Million was found dead in Lake Washington after his brawl hours early at Larry's nightclub. Speculation amongst police and amongst people throughout the city was that BiG-TKidd found dead at Lake Washington must have been retaliation somehow for the self-defense attack BiG-TKidd was allegedly involved in at Larry's nightclub against Seattle Seahawks player Ken Hamlin. But oddly enough, that was not the case. 2 years passed, and the people of the city still thought that Seattle Seahawks player Ken Hamlin was responsible for the passing of Terrell Million until Seattle police released a report to the Seattle News that DNA evidence found on a cigarette butt at the scene of BiG-TKidd's passing matched that of a Seattle Central District low-profile gang member. Reports stated that after BiG-TKidd left Larry's nightclub following the Ken Hamlin brawl, he then got into a car with individuals he knew. Soon after, an argument ensued amongst BiG-TKidd and the occupants of the car, which led to BiG-TKidd being shot 8 times in the body and 1 to his head, where he was then thrown out the car and left in Seattle's Lake Washington, as Seattle police speculated. Seattle Central District Duce8 South Jackson and Seattle Central District Low Profile, which was a set built in the mid-90s, were once both allies and individuals who grew up together until a falling out happened around the same time that gentrification started to take place in the Central District of Seattle that possibly could have had an effect on the two groups who were once at peace. A Central District low-profile member, who I will just call O, was later charged and convicted after trial of the matter of Terrell Million, aka BiG-TKidd, losing his life. He was later sentenced to 53 years in a state penitentiary and is currently serving out his sentence at the Walla Walla State Pen. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. One love, no mean mugs or shoulder shrugs. Bet that, no setbacks. God bless.